Hello and welcome to all the vampires and ghouls out there. I'm Joe, here with me is my co-host Dan.
Hello and greetings.
And today we're discussing Solomon Kane. Men shall die for this. Is the chief line of this story, I would argue. As Kane ends up arriving on the scene, but his first few lines are nothing like I imagined him. Now, I must confess, we're new to Solomon Kane as a character. We've only ever watched the movie, and I've read one or two comics, but they weren't very good. And reading Howard's actual story, I can actually safely say that Solomon Kane is far more tender and gentle a character than Conan or Kull in a lot of ways. Conan is gruff by nature. He can be gentle, but he's gruff about it. Kull has very little of gentility in him. In a lot of ways, he's more barbarous than Conan and far more gloomy a character. Solomon Kane, in his opening scene, doesn't arrive in a gruff manner, but rather tenderly holds a girl, speaks to her, and holds her as she dies, extending to her every kindness imaginable. If anything, I'd say Solomon Kane is weirdly the definition of chivalry in his opening scene.
Indeed.
He just
and vowing revenge for this girl he only met 5 seconds before with such hatred. That is incredible.
He has a very strong sense of justice and right and wrong. So that I can actually say that I think Solomon Kane might be, in some ways, perhaps Howard's most moral character. Like, he has, so far from what I've read, the most strong penchant and sense of right and wrong, of what should be done and what shouldn't be. And he does not mete out the kind of justice that is in some ways ineffectual, like Batman. He does not mete out the justice of the law courts. He metes out his own justice. But that based off of the Bible, or at least the Old Testament, it seems.
And he seems to abide, as you mentioned, heavily by the code of chivalry.
Yes. The idea of chivalry is that men were supposed to be masculine, to an extent maybe a little dangerous, polite, certainly, and to uphold ladies, God, and king / country. And Solomon Kane upholds these things. He then goes on a quest to hunt down the Loup, or Le Loup, and Loup is a infamous bandit and brigand who violates innocent maidens, who murders freely and happily. And along with his band of brigands, he is terrorizing people wherever he goes. And Solomon tracks him down, and at the beginning of chapter 2, we see that Lulu and his band are terrified and have been reduced to almost quivering, frightened children of whoever is threatening and hunting them down. And one of their dying members is brought before Lulu, who questions him, asking him, well, who has done this to you? And the guy says, Solomon Kane. At which point, Lulu eventually asks him repeatedly, what does he look like? And all he's told is Satan. Which sends a chill up the spines of the men, with one of them immediately starting to panic, thinking it's the son of Satan who's after them. Lulu refuses to crumble or weep or give way to weakness, but agrees to betray one of his band, while the rest of them will escape with the gold. But they're not quick enough. Although the fact that le rat, the rat, wants to betray Le Mans is pretty wicked. And Lulu doesn't offer any resistance. He's like, okay, there's no loyalty amongst thieves, I guess. or murderers. But Solomon Kane chases him down, and Lelou asks him, "Oh, did you? Well, there are. What did you fancy that girl? Wow, your jealousy's driven you pretty far. There are plenty of attractive wenches all around France that you can enjoy yourself with." And Solomon Kane, at those words, shakes and quivers with rage and shrieks at him horribly and tells him, "I have never tortured a man, but by God, you push me too far. I may just do that." To which Lelou goes, "Wait, he took the Lord's name in vain." And his tone communicates how enraged he is. But Lelou escapes through cunning and for a distraction. But Solomon Kane's initial appearance in chapter 1 is one of cold rage, and his second one is one of white hot burning wrath. So that this might sound weird, he really does have a temperament like the God from the Old Testament. He's not like, what I mean is, God in the Old Testament is portrayed when angered. Now, it doesn't happen very often. I know some might say the Old Testament portrays him in a very tempestuous light. No, it's just, I think he only gets angry a few times. But when he does, he's harsh. But you look at the situation with Noah, with the flood. You look at
Egypt.
Egypt. And I think that's kind of the only times he really gets angry. Other than that, he gets disappointed like a father does. I'm not angry, I'm disappointed. But that said, the anger is either ice cold or white hot. And I think that's the nature of Solomon Kane. It's either ice cold or white hot. And Solomon Kane is already a very, very complicated character with a violent side. He's violence personified. He's very dangerous.
Punisher's got nothing on him.
No. But he doesn't torture. He has ethics. But he's also gentle. So the portrayal in the movie where he's portrayed as a very gentle man who doesn't want to hurt anyone, but he's driven to violence against his will, is very true to the character.
And it's interesting how Lelou called Gawain Sir Galahad mockingly.
Oh. Yeah, he called him Sir Galahad mockingly, because Galahad was supposed to be pure. That's very mocking. Oh wait, you said Gawain.
I said Galahad.
No, but you said Gawain. It's Kane, Solomon Kane, that he calls Galahad. Well, if you actually think about it, Solomon Kane has a lot in common with Gawain, but Gawain was the maiden's knight in traditional Arthuriana. But Solomon Kane, well, you have Solomon, obviously the one famous king from Hebrew scripture, and Cain, the first murderer in history, according to the Bible. And I'm only applying a bit of the biblical stuff because that's relative to the character of Solomon Kane. He's a very Old Testament style character. Well, Howard was very obviously thinking of that. And I've seen people say that Howard was not very Christian, but this character just seems to radiate Christianity. And it seems like Howard is very much enthused with this character. He's very, very taken.
There's the passion in the story, and I could feel it.
There are stories where Howard's not very passionate, but this one, there's passion there. And while I prefer the Conan stories, already I can tell I prefer Conan, because Conan's so well written. But yeah, calling Kane Galahad is, I think, a mocking statement of virginity. He's doing the medieval equivalent of calling him an incel. But the thing is, Kane, I don't think really cares for that insult. Call him Sir Galahad, he doesn't care. It's the murder of a young, innocent girl that upsets and angers him. But here's the thing. There are some weirdos out there who think that if you show the remotest act of kindness towards a lady, you are an incel and a simp. But in reality, it's called simple courtesy. And it's this sort of chivalrous behavior that used to define the West. En particulier, the French and most cultures that had knights in them. It was expected that men should behave dutifully towards ladies and their elders, as respect and courtesy are of the utmost importance. But the problem is that as old traditions have faded, so too have people's sense of courtesy and faith in chivalry as a concept. Even though the best literature in the West harkens back to and celebrates chivalry in men. You look at Dracula, with Jonathan Harker being the very epitome of chivalry, to Certains Héros de Joseph Conrad, like Lord Jim. You have too many novels from the 19th century to count where the hero was very chivalrous. You look at Atticus Finch from To Kill a Mockingbird. He's pretty much a knight archetype character. He's very much, or a magician at least, but he embodies the code of chivalry. You look at most heroic characters in fantasy fiction have a certain amount of chivalry in them. Aragorn, Gandalf, Bilbo, even Samwise, Conan. Too many to count. But Solomon Kane is coming in a long line of horror leads who are chivalrous. But I can actually say that, like Jonathan Harker and even Van Helsing, he definitely epitomizes chivalry. He is honorable to a fault, but he is ferocious. You don't mess with him. So he's good, but not safe. And that was the traditional idea of good, is that they are not a safe individual. They are dangerous because they have to be. They have to be like a tiger or a wolf. They'll look out for, other people. But to those who are evil, they bear their fangs and their claws, which, as Jonathan Harker would put it, this is the simple law of club and fang. Not Jonathan Harker, Jack London. This is the law of club and fang. Now, if you enjoyed this video, stay tuned for the next few chapters. We'll be happy to make that video for you all. And don't forget to smash that like and that subscribe button as though you were Solomon Kane taking down one of his enemies.